Hi everyone, it's Christelle. Welcome back. Hello. Today is a little something different, but we are going to be celebrating World Down Syndrome Day today. It's 3/21. I've got my World Down Syndrome Day shirt on. I'm ready to celebrate. And I have said here on the channel before, but just in case anyone may be new coming in, my son, he's 9 and he has Down syndrome, and World Down Syndrome Day has become a pretty big deal around this house, and it's definitely a day that we take to really celebrate and appreciate my son, and then of course all of our friends that we've met with Down syndrome, just by him coming into our lives and opening our world up for us. So yeah, let's talk about Down syndrome a little bit. It's a chromosomal condition. It's one in about 700-ish births result in Down syndrome, and it's basically just an extra chromosome. We get 23 from our mom and 23 from our dad, and when they come together we get 46. But in the case of Down syndrome, a little sticky number 21 tags along for the ride and gives us 47 chromosomes, and that's Down syndrome. That's trisomy 21. And like I said, it is the most common genetic condition. But yeah, I'll leave it at that. It's called Down syndrome because a man named John Langdon Down in about the 1860s kind of was looking at these folks that kind of had the same sort of physical traits, and they, kind of some of the, kind of the same things going on. It's like, gosh, this looks like it might be something that's connecting these people together. They kind of, they have just some similarities. But it wasn't until about the 1950s that a Dr. Jerome Lejeune, a French guy, discovered that it wasn't an actual chromosomal genetic occurrence. So, but Down syndrome stuck as the name because of John Langdon Down. But anyway, that's just a little bit about Down syndrome itself. And of course, because I usually talk about books here, I have got a ton of book recommendations to talk about today to celebrate Down syndrome. I've had this kind of I've got this goal of reading books that have characters with Down syndrome or written by folks with Down syndrome, all this stuff. And I'm slowly making my way through so I can find the ones that I think are good and ones that I like. And so I'm going to recommend some of these to you today if you would like to either learn more from some folks with Down syndrome, or some fiction books that have really good characters with Down syndrome. And I've got everything from children's books to, I've got some middle grades, I've got some adult stuff, I've got some nonfiction. I've got it all. So I'm going to just dive right in and talk about these amazing books. So first up, I'm going to talk about books that are actually written by folks with Down syndrome. There aren't too many, but there are some out there that I'm definitely going to talk about today. The first one I'm going to talk about is Count Us In, Growing Up with Down Syndrome. This is by Jason Kingsley and Mitchell Levitz. And these guys are, they're friends. and they just write in this book about, just being friends and what it's like to have Down syndrome and all that kind of stuff. It's kind of told through, I don't know if you can tell, but through almost like an interview kind of format. And this is what I actually still need to read. I'm still going to recommend it because it is written by these two young men, and I'm actually going to plan to read this one in April along with the next one because Disability Readathon's in April. But definitely check this out if you would like just some insight from someone with Down syndrome about, what life is like for them. So I'm looking forward to getting into that one, as the same as I'm looking forward to getting into this one. More alike than different. But this is by David Egan with Kathleen Egan, who I'm assuming is his mom. David Egan is a powerhouse of the Down syndrome community. He is a wonderful self-advocate. He's spoken to at the U.S. Capitol. He is amazing, and I cannot wait to dig into this book. This is a more recent purchase for me, so This one just came out pretty recently, and so yeah, I just hadn't had a chance to dig into it yet. But he just talks about everything in here, and I cannot wait to dive into this. But again, I'm going to recommend it even though I haven't read it yet, because it's written by David. I know it's going to be amazing because he's amazing, and I'm excited, and I hope that you'll check this one out. The next one I'm going to recommend is just a general author, is Sarah Savage Cooley. I have read one of her poetry collections. I forgot to write it. This Is Me, I believe it was called. A wonderful little poetry collection where she talks about her life, her family, her faith. She is a very faithful. Faith, is a big part of her life. And she's fantastic. Sarah has a YouTube channel. I'm going to link that below, where she's got like intro videos. She's got all kinds of videos where she talks about her book. She's got several books out that you can get by her and check it out. She's got little essays, poetry, all kinds of stuff that she's got out. So check out Sarah Cooley for sure. And the final book that I have here, written by someone with Down syndrome, is Black Day, The Monster Rock Band, by Marcus Sikora, with some help from his mom, Marja Sikora. Both of these folks are, again, powerhouses of our Down syndrome community. Marja is an author also of some parenting book about Down syndrome, and they go to a lot of conferences and things like that and speak. And they are wonderful. And Marcus wrote this children's, it's a picture book, and it's fantastic. It takes place right there at Halloween. We follow this young man here who's just on his paper route, and he hears some rock music coming from this house, and lo and behold is, of course, the home of a mad scientist who has created a monster rock band. And so we follow that kid as he's trying to save the rock band, and then how they all start performing on Halloween night. It's a super fun. We read this every year, Halloween for sure. It's definitely perfect for spooky season. It's a lot of fun. So recommend this one for sure. So here's the final picture. It's really wonderful. It's written really, it's a lot of fun. So let's see those. So yeah, those are the books that, again, I have found so far written by folks with Down syndrome. I'm always on the hunt for more, but those will get you started at least. And I want to lead into this book, which isn't written by someone with Down syndrome, but is written about someone with Down syndrome. It's called Unbound, The Life and Art of Judith Scott. Judith Scott was a phenomenal artist and just happened to have Down syndrome also. And this is a fantastic book about about her life, written by her sister, I will say, her sister Joyce Scott, and wonderful illustrations by Melissa Sweet. And it talks about how in the 1940s, Judith and Joyce were twins, and they were born in, like I said, in the 1940s. And as of that time period, they grew up together for several years, and they were just the bestest of friends. But as, Judith was getting older, the differences became more apparent. Her parents decided to do what a lot of people did at that time, and Judith was sent to an institution where she stayed the majority of her childhood. And they did visit her very often, which was lovely at least. But yeah, she grew up separate from her family. And once Joyce got a bit older, she was adult, and she's like, gosh, you know what? I want my sister to come live with me. And so she made that choice to bring Judith home with her. And she did that. And which even I'd say that was probably about there's a timeline in here. In the 80s. So yeah. So Joyce, there's a timeline here in the back line of the back of the book of, kind of a quick overall brief, overall of what of Judith and Joyce's life. So in the 80s, she made that choice to bring Judith home, and she was looking, for something to do, and it wasn't. Can I just say, I want to interject that it wasn't found out until she was an adult that Judith was actually deaf also, and it basically just went undiagnosed for years. Her story is heartbreakingly sad, but also one of just pure amazement also. But once she went home to go live with her sister, let me get back on track. Her sister was like, gosh, well, we'll find some fun things for Judith to do, or, can we get her involved in something? And she takes her to this place called the Creative Growth Center, I believe it's called, Creative Growth Art Center in California. I believe it still is a thing today. And it's a nonprofit place where people with disabilities, intellectual, physical, developmental disabilities go to create art. And it was there that Judith really discovered her voice and was able to express herself after all these years of just living in silence and living, separated from her family. And it's just amazing. So it's wonderful illustrations, like I said, of Judith creating her sculptures. She mixed media, like fiber art sculptures. It was what she did. She would almost wrap these things and of all sorts of material, and she would work on it, and then it would be like she was done. And so she moved on to the next piece, and her work is exhibited still now. I would love to see some of it in person. I have not had the chance yet, but would love to do that. This is Judith, taken the year before she passed away in 2005, I think it was, 2006. So she is, 2005. But she lived a nice long life, and gosh, got to create so much beautiful artwork for us to enjoy. You can look her up online. Pictures of her work are everywhere online. Judith Scott. But this book is fantastic, and would highly recommend it. It's beautiful. So I wanted to kind of tack that on to the end of that one. Now let's dig into, let's throw these down here real quick. We'll start with the picture books. I have quite a bit of picture books because we're on the, we're on the younger side of childhood here. So so I have a lot of picture books, and these are ones that I like. I've definitely read some picture books that I don't like. So these are ones I would recommend about, that have characters with Down syndrome. First, we'll start off with We'll Paint the Octopus Red, written by Stephanie Stuve Bodine, illustrated by Pam DeVito. This is a lovely story about a family who are welcoming a new baby, and they're trying to basically explain to their older kid that the new baby was born a little different, was born with this thing called Down syndrome. And this book is especially good for explaining what Down syndrome is to young kids. So if you are maybe the parent of a young kid, or you are a teacher, of young children, or you're expecting, a little baby with Down syndrome, and maybe have, other children, and, kind of like, how do I explain this to them? This book does a really good job with this, and actually the next one will too. But basically, the little girl is like, well, we'll still do this, right? And we'll still go to the zoo. We'll still go to visit grandma and grandpa. We'll still do all those things, right? And my parents are like, yeah, basically, yeah. Nothing much will change, but things will be just a little bit different with this little baby coming to our life. It's a fantastic story. It's wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. The same with this one, 47 Strings, Tessa's Special Code. This is written by Becky Carey, illustrated by Bonnie Leake. I hope I said that right. This is written by a mother of a child with Down syndrome who is wonderful. This kind of is the same thing as We'll Paint the Octopus Red, in that it really explains Down syndrome in a way to young kids, in a way that helps them understand it. So this is talking about, again, Tessa's special code. It talks about the 47 strings, which is referencing, of course, the 47 chromosomes that make someone with Down syndrome just a little bit different. And it's just really lovely. And here is a, oops, I have the picture and I lost it. So it's saying, you know, I'll get this in here. You know, most kids have 47 strings. So here's our, you know, here are the chromosomes. Ooh, but Tessa has 47. She's got an extra of the 21. So that just makes things a little bit different for her. And that makes it hers, you know, her special code. And it explains that, you know, things, you know, she'll learn things probably a bit slower. She'll be, you know, things will be a little bit different for her, but overall, our family and our life will be the same. She'll still go to school. She'll still have lots of fun, you know, all those things, just like you like to do, that kind of thing. So, and there's the happy family, the beautiful illustrations. And yeah, this is just a wonderful story. So here's the author and her family. Tessa's probably close to my son's age by now. And again, it's another one for explaining to young kids about, you know, what is Down syndrome and what does that mean? You know, it's a good book for that. Let's see. So I'll move into this one. This is a newer book for us in this family, in my house. It's A Friend Like Anian. I'm thinking that's how it is spelled. Written by Mika Caldwell. Illustrated by ePublishing Experts. And again, this is written by the parent of a kid with Down syndrome who, wasn't seeing kids like hers in the books. You'll notice this Anian is a little African American boy, and so this tells his story, and this was wonderful too. And so this one, I love this one because it just kind of goes through the day with Anian and his mom. So they get up and they eat breakfast. You know, they get in the car, they meet the mailman, they get in the car and they go to the grocery store. You know, just little things, and who Anian meets along the way. And one of the things in the book is he's trying really hard to say the word juice. And so all throughout he's like, here we're getting, you know, Jew. And that I think is wonderful because, of course, speech delays are pretty common with Down syndrome. You know, they go to the dry cleaner. It's just running errands with mom, you know, and I just love that. And then, of course, at the end of the book, he says the word juice, and his family is celebrating because he's been working really hard on that. So this is a wonderful book, and not the greatest picture, but there is Annie in real life. So again, this one, I really liked this one also. Let's see, a few more. Sorry, like I said, we have more kid books than anything. This one is great. It's called Eli Included. If you have a kid that's in school, and maybe someone with Down syndrome is in their classroom, this talks about Eli, who is on his way to school, and he's the new kid in school, and he is going into his classroom, and he's a little different than everyone in his classroom. It talks about, what I love is like, it's is open to questions. Like the kids are asking questions about Eli, and they ask things that kids ask, like, why is Eli wearing braces on his feet? You know, why? It's because, of course, his muscles aren't as strong, and so the braces help his feet stay up. And it's just like the braces some of you may have on your teeth, right? It helps move things into place, right? And then, you know, Eli has something called Down syndrome. Of course, the kid's like, can I catch it? Because kids are very curious, and it's okay that kids are curious. Let them ask the questions, right? And so the teacher's like, no, I'll explain a little bit about what Down syndrome is. And it explains what chromosomes do. It makes, you know, someone's hair this color, your eyes this color, your hair look like this, and it just makes Eli, you know, exactly what Eli is, and things like that. I just love that it brings in ability our ability and mobility aids is, I guess, what I mean, and even some possible issues with that can come along with Down syndrome. Of course, glasses is pretty, but gait trainers, and again the fit braces, which I'm glad we're not wearing those anymore. But even like being tube fed, things like that. I love that about this book. I think this is a great one to read aloud in a classroom, about really understanding, that the differences are okay, and having him in your classroom is okay, because of course meaningful inclusion in our classroom is good stuff, right? So Eli Included, I really love that one. This is a really short book. It's called Katie Can. A story about special needs by Aaron Palmer, illustrated by John Joseph. And this is really just about Katie, who is going to school, and how Katie loves school. This is a very simple, probably like an early reader kind of book. If you got an early reader. So throughout the book, you see is this Katie. Katie works hard, and so she's trying to spell dog throughout the kind of throughout the book here, and then at the towards the end, of course, she spells it, and she gets home, and her family are very happy for her that she worked so hard. Again, I think this is just a really good one to have in a classroom or in your home, especially maybe if you have someone with Down syndrome in your school or your kids' classroom, that kind of thing. It's a fun one. I'm not in love with the illustrations of this one, but the overall, vibe of it is pretty good. So let's see, a couple more. Another one that's really sort of celebrating differences is Different, A Great Thing to Be by Heather Avis, and illustrated by Sarah Mensinga. Heather Avis is someone who's, again, pretty, big in our Down syndrome community. She's a good advocate for Down syndrome. This is about her daughter Macy, who has Down syndrome. And it's just talking about Macy, how she does things a little differently, and she's very happy with being the person that she is. And at the end, different is truly a great thing to be, hanging out with Macy would be a lot of fun, right? So this one isn't necessarily about Down syndrome. I don't really think Down syndrome is mentioned in here, but it's just celebrating that again, that everyone's different, and you should give everyone a chance to be their friend, right? It's a good messaging, and I like that. The last one for the children's books is The Prince Who Was Just Himself by Silke Schnee, illustrated by Heike Sistig. Lord, I probably butchered that. This is a wonderful story. It looks like this is translated by Erna Alberts as well, and I love this book. It looks like this was translated from German. This is a story about a kingdom. We've got our king and queen, and they have 2 sons, and when you know it, along comes this other new little prince. And let's see. Yeah, so, and this prince is just this new prince is just a little different, Here he is. There he's born finally, and he's just a little different. And they say, yeah, he looks a little different, but he's our brother. He's just himself. Yeah, and it's just kind of, he's growing up with his brothers, and how, he wasn't always good at running and jumping, but it didn't matter because he was never in a hurry anyhow. He liked being wherever he was and not worried about where he would go next. And I just love that. And of course, there's an evil character here. It is a kingdom after all. And the family rides out. And of course, the prince with Down syndrome saves the day at the end. It's a really lovely story. It's, again, just about, letting I think more so about just letting someone be who they are. He'll learn differently, and, he does things differently. Man, that's okay, because he's totally happy and his family loves him very much. I think that's a great one. And this story is a fun one. I like it a lot. Phew, so that is our children's books. I've got a couple of middle grade books I would like to talk about. The first is A Storm of Strawberries by Joe Cotterill. I ended up really loving this one. I read this one pretty recently, and oh gosh, I was really impressed. Because this story is actually from the perspective of this young girl with Down syndrome. So we are totally, in her head the whole story. Her family, they have a strawberry farm, and it's a pretty big farm with lots of acreage, and it's, her mom and her sister, and then she has a stepfather and a stepbrother. So it's a, so sort of a commingled family also. And it takes place like basically over Easter weekend, and as this title suggests, they've got a real bad storm happening over this weekend, and it's sort of like the what happens over this weekend, and how our character, what's her name? I forget her name. Darby. That's right. She's a little 12-year-old. She loves to sing. She loves music. She loves her family, especially her big sister. At this weekend, though, her big sister does have a friend over, and we learn also throughout the book that maybe her sister's friend is a bit more than friends. So it does talk about some LGBTQ things in this book also. But also has this, through the eyes of this amazing character with Down syndrome, who I thought was really well done in this book. There's a couple of things I marked in here. There's this egg hunt that the family does every year, and something happens before the egg hunt, and Darby gets really upset. And I love this, it says, "But I am angry now, angry and hurt and upset, and I can't go out because I'm having too many feelings and it's stopping me from doing anything." And oh gosh, I think that just represents that perfectly, because I see my son getting frustrated sometimes when he gets so worked up about something that it's hard to process and move past these feelings that he's having. I just thought that was just really wonderful. And one thing I loved also was, I think he's talking about it's either his dad or her brother, but he looks impressed. "I didn't think you could do it." I grin. I love when people say that. So it looks like sometimes people underestimate the things that she can do. And so when they say, "Gosh, I didn't think you could do that," and she does it, she makes her feel very proud. I loved this book. And I will say at the back, there is a little thing where Joe, the author, is saying, thank you to some people in here. It's just like she really did her research of trying to really capture someone with Down syndrome by interviewing like a parent and a little girl with Down syndrome. And I think that really shines through in this book, because it felt very realistic and authentic to me, and I really loved Darby and her family. So this one was a great one. One Third Nerd by Jennifer Choldenko was also a recent read. And this has some illustrations illustrated by Eglantin Sulemans. Should have practiced that beforehand. This one is more of a cute story, but it was really fun. And the character with Down syndrome here is the little girl here. I thought she was represented very well, so I would like to talk about it. We've got it's a family. It's a mom and the 3 kids, and our parents are divorced, so they are living in just sort of a small apartment, and they're having an issue with their dog, who is having accidents all throughout the apartment, and the landlord is getting a little upset about it. So they're basically like the kids are trying to come up with ways to try to save the dog, basically, because the mom's like, the dog's gonna have to go, if he doesn't keep using the bathroom all over the place, basically. So we've, it's a mix of characters. He's a little 5th grader, and he's like getting to that age where he's like getting a little too cool. Like he's embarrassed by his sister, who's like totally nerd. He's not all the way nerd, but she's all the way nerd. And then of course the little girl with Down syndrome, who just wants to be part of everything. It's cute. Like I said, it's a really cute story about, and it's got really cute illustrations. This is actually a really cool scene that I happened to fold open to, but her mom is a part of, looks like a group of parents and other kids with Down syndrome that get together monthly, I think it was, and that was fun to see. It's just a really cute book, sort of celebrating, being smart about things and working through things and solving things on your own, that kind of thing. It was cute, and I'd recommend it. Phew, all right. Okay, I'm going to talk about a couple of graphic novels. First up is Metaphase. Metaphase. This started off as a Kickstarter, I remember. This has a little boy named Ollie who happens to have Down syndrome. He wants to have powers just like his superhero dad. So his dad is a superhero, but he was born with Down syndrome, but also along with his Down syndrome came heart defects, which is very common with Down syndrome. About 50% of our babies are born with heart issues. But his father, of course, is very overprotective, really, because of that. But enter the Meta Makers, a company that promises to give powers to anyone who wants them. And of course, Ollie just can't resist. But will he become the hero that he wants to be? Or will this just cause more trouble for his dad? This is a really, really good book. I'll get to some of the, so here's little Ollie. He's super cute. And so here he is when he turns to Metaphase. It's very cool. I like this book. And this is another book written by a parent has a kiddo with Down syndrome. And it's kind of one of those things he wanted to see, someone like his kid, in a comic book, and so he just wrote it himself. So it's a fun one. I would recommend, especially if you like superhero type stuff. And really the same with this one, is kind of superhero type stuff. Have been 4 books, and I'm not sure if it's complete or not, but let's see. This is superb, and so here's volume 1, volume 2. I've read 1 and 2 so far. I still need to read 3 and 4. And 4. This is essentially, it's a really cool story. What happened? It was a meteor, asteroid hit Earth, and there was a big meteor shower that hit Youngstown, Ohio, and teenagers are now coming out with not superhero powers, but like supernatural type powers. And we follow these 2 characters. What's her name? Kayla. Kayla and Jonah. That's right. So Kayla used to live in Youngstown, but now her family has returned because of all that's happened. I think her dad has a new job, kind of thing. So they're like back in town, and she runs into her old friend Jonah. This is our character with Down syndrome. And wouldn't you know it, these 2 guys have been affected by that fallout of the asteroid, and have some supernatural powers. Now, in this world, there's also this sort of government facility, I guess, who are trying to control these teenagers, because their powers can be a bit unwieldy, shall we say, and some people have gotten really hurt by it. But Jonah has been kind of playing superhero and trying to save people along the way, and then Kayla gets wrapped up into it, and there's a whole big scheme. It's a whole thing, right? I really like this book. Of course, Jonah is pretty awesome, honestly, and really celebrates that kind of other all of these kids with these supernatural powers are treated pretty terribly, as generally, because they're trying to be controlled, that kind of thing. I really liked this one. And I need to finish this series out for sure, or at least get caught up. I don't know if, I'm not sure how many is left, but we're up to 4, I know. But yeah, this is really great. So if you're into comics, I would recommend that one. I've got just a few more. We're going to move into a couple of adult books. I've read some adult books that I like, and I've read some I don't like. These 2 are fiction books that I do like so far. I have a list 2 pages long of books that have characters with Down syndrome, so there'll be multiple videos like this, I'm sure, coming up. But anyway, my first up is, of course, going to be Census by Jessie Ball. This is a love letter to loving someone with Down syndrome. I love this book, even though it's a little strange at times. It's set, it feels like America, maybe, but it's sort of some sort of future type setting, perhaps. It's not very clear in here, which is one thing that if you don't mind ambiguity, you will like this probably. So the world is set up basically in alphabetical order. So like there's A, B, C, D, all the way to Z, and our main character is this older man. He's a widower. His wife has passed away, and they have a son with Down syndrome, who I would say is probably in his 20s or 30s. Maybe even older, I'm not sure, because the man is quite old, and he gets some news that he's actually going to be dying soon. I believe it's cancer, but I don't remember now. But so he decides to become a census taker and take his son on kind of a one last hurrah kind of road trip kind of thing, and do the census along the way. And that's really what the book is about. It's him, he and his son driving around the country doing the census, which is a bit sinister actually. It's not just like taking people's names and things. There's a sort of physical tattooing involved with the census. So it's just about them, the people that they meet along the way. The father also kind of thinking back to his son as a child, he and his wife when they first met, and their life together, the dreams that they had, things like that. It particularly was one for they were going to take this really big road trip at some point, which never happened, because sometimes life, throws us curveballs, and we just don't always get, to live out those plans. And again, it's just fantastic. It's so wonderful. I loved this book as a parent of a kid with the Down syndrome. I loved this book. And what we do know that the author Jessie Ball had a brother with Down syndrome, and really wanted to just, I think, capture the love, for his brother, who really unexpectedly, I think, passed away quite. So this is a picture of his family. There's his brother with Down syndrome when they were young. And I love this book. And if you like a bit of sci-fi dystopian type of world that's not quite explained, this is not it's not very explained, but if you just, is it more of a character study, I would recommend this. And again, like I say, it just really feels like a love letter to loving someone with Down syndrome, and I loved it so much. And completely something totally different is Behind Closed Doors by B.A. Paris. Now this is like a domestic thriller, and it's a good one, and it has a really awesome character with Down syndrome in it. So in this, we've got, let's see, what are their names here? Jack and Grace, that's right. They have met, they've fallen in love. Whoa, things are awesome. They get married, and things take a turn. Jack is not who Grace thought he was. He flips a 180, becomes very domineering, and even locks her in a room and everything, controls her life, doesn't let her see her friends unless he's with them, all that kind of stuff. But Grace does have a sister with Down syndrome who, sorry, her name's not on the back, I forget her name, but who they're very close with, but she lives in kind of what feels like a group home type of setting. But her sister, I love the way her sister was portrayed in this, because she's very intuitive. She is like, in the few times that she gets to see, her sister now, again, her husband's always with her. She's like, something's not right here. Like, you're acting yourself, and I love that she's portrayed very well in this book. So if you like a bit of a domestic thriller with some twists and turns, that also has a pretty great character with Down syndrome. This one was pretty good. Behind Closed Doors, B.A. Paris. we're gonna do one more, and that's gonna be it. This is more of a nonfiction. It's like a memoir. There are tons of memoirs written by parents of children with Down syndrome. I've not read hardly any of them. I'm gonna be honest. I don't know. I don't know. I live it, I guess, maybe. I don't know. Sometimes they're a bit too, and this is just me personally, sometimes they're a bit overly religious, which is just not my thing. But this one, The Shape of the Eye by George Estridge, is wonderful. This was one of the first books I read after getting my son's diagnosis, and I had lived with it for a little while, and then I read this, and it was what I needed, you know. But it's not just for parents of Down syndrome or kids with Down syndrome. I would recommend anyone to read this. George talks about, you know, of course, his daughter Laura. That's right, and he just goes into, you know, their life, their family history. Genes and everything. It's not overly saccharine, it's not overly religious, but it's very realistic. It comes in a very loving way, of course, too. But George is a writer. He has lots of articles out there that you can find. Again, a good champion in our Down syndrome community and greater disability community. But this is a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful memoir. I did get to meet George, and so I met him, that would have been 2013, so my kid would have been not quite 1 year old yet. And so right here it says, "Congratulations on your baby and warmest wishes for you and your family." And so The Shape of the Eye by George Estridge. This will be my last book for this mega long video. so many good things, you guys, that are out there for sure. And so I hope that, you know, this inspires you to pick something up, or maybe just do a little research on Down syndrome if you like, or if you've got a loved one with Down syndrome in your life, happy World Down Syndrome Day. I celebrate them with you. And I think that'll do it for me today. Thanks so much for watching. If you've made it this far, leave me maybe a yellow heart in the comments. And happy World Down Syndrome Day. If you have any questions about Down syndrome, let me know. I'm an open book. I will be happy to talk with you about it. I hope you give some of these books a try. And that's it. So thanks for watching. I hope you're doing well. And I'll see you in the next one. Bye, friends.